A disciple of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, had this to say.
I was born in America in 1955, African American, so not your typical person whom you would think would believe Krishna is God, coming from American community, not just American community, but coming from the sometimes referred to as African American community or Negro community. But my background, of course, is my parents were Christians. And, of course, they follow the Bible, and the Bible has good information, but there wasn't enough information for me. I can remember going to church and asking quite often, why was I born in this family? Why wasn't I born in a more opulent family? For instance, why wasn't I born in Bill Gates' family? Of course, I didn't ask that at the time. He didn't exist. Or why wasn't I made more handsome? Or I would ask even, what does God look like? And of course, Christian priests would say, nobody knows. You're not supposed to ask those questions. God is spirit. He's beyond your knowing. You just have to accept these simple things. But it wasn't enough for me. But still, I was so curious. My brother and I would always ask, but we couldn't find. We looked at Quran, we looked at Bible, and we would just speculate and really, really wanted to know. So finally, he graduated from high school, went to college. And when he was coming back one day, somehow or another, he came in contact with the devotees from Harinam, and he brought back a Back to Godhead magazine. And he told me, he says, you won't believe it. Read this. So immediately I said, even though I told him, go get more books, find more books. So he bought Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, was sold in a bookstore at that time. And even though I couldn't read, Krishna, Arjuna, because I didn't know Sanskrit and all those little kind of words, but I could jump through it enough that I could understand what was being said. And after a year of reading, I didn't live near a temple, but after a year of reading, I finally graduated from high school. It was in my first year of college. I finally decided that I wanted just to devote my life to serving Krishna.
Amongst many former Christians, there exists a common belief that while Jesus Christ was the sublime prophet, it was Krishna who was the spiritual father. Krishna, then, is a religious icon, venerated by generations of Hindus. Yet there are many, especially among the educated classes, who doubt his very existence and regard the whole thing as somewhat of an ancient myth. There is now, however, compelling evidence to suggest that Krishna was no figment of the imagination, but a being who actually existed here on earth. His miracle performing may be disputed, his divinity even, but not, it seems, his existence. Krishna was born at least 14 centuries before Christ. Estimates of his actual birth vary from 14 centuries to 57 centuries BC. The Bhagavad Gita declares that Krishna is not just any god, but the Lord God, who descended on earth to protect the saints, annihilate the wicked, and to establish righteousness. Whenever the forces of evil rule the earth, I will incarnate myself to destroy the wicked, to protect the saints, and to establish righteousness in age after age. These are the words of Krishna as set down in the Bhagavad Gita. One of the best sources of evidence of Krishna is the Mahabharata, which dates from just before the Christian era. The critical edition of the Mahabharata lies at the Bandaka Oriental Research Institute at Pune in India. The Mahabharata consists of 18 books called Parvas, containing 100,000 verses. They describe a terrible war between the Pandavas, led by Krishna, and the evil Kauravas, in which 4 million soldiers are said to have perished in 18 days. The 100,000 Sanskrit verses of the Mahabharata were painstakingly transcribed from the Shada Codex by Dr. Suktanka and his team of scholars. But could such a war have taken place so long ago? And did Krishna really exist? Some of the key sites referred to in the Mahabharata are Hastinapur, the capital, Kurukshetra, where the war was fought, and Indraprastha, or Delhi, as it is now called. Dr. Lal is probably India's best-known archaeologist who excavated Hastinapur over 60 years ago.
Two extremely divergent views about the historicity of the Mahabharata. According to one view, everything mentioned in the text is true to the very letter. Another view holds that it is the figment of the imagination of a poet called Vyas or many poets. Actually, all this confusion is because the text is not contemporary with the event.
That an advanced civilization did exist, at least as long ago as 1500 BC, is borne out by the discovery of various artifacts and a planned town by Dr. Lal and his team. Various artifacts, including earthenware, spearheads, and dice for gambling, were found at Hastinapur. Evidence of a great flood that destroyed Hastinapur was also found, which caused the capital to be shifted to Kausambi, as narrated in the epic. So, there are two very divergent views about the Mahabharata. One, that it is historically and factually accurate. The other, that it is pure fiction. Rajesh Purohit is one of the foremost authorities on the subject.
To understand the authenticity of what has been narrated in the Mahabharata, we made an exploration of the data that we have pertaining to the river Saraswati, which is again a controversial river, because most of the scholars believe that it was a mythical river. Interestingly, the data that we have today, it tells that it was a mighty river, virtually existed and produced a mighty civilization. We are coming across with both on the banks of river Saraswati on the north as well on the south, the southern river, the Drishadvati river, antiquities almost pertaining to the time of Indus Valley civilization as well as pre-Indus Valley civilization. If you take the river's journey from the Himalaya to the Kutch or to the Arabian Sea, the journey is almost 1600 kilometers, and you are having 1200 archaeological sites all along the Saraswati. So these are important data which gives you an insight that you think twice before you say that Mahabharata is a myth.
In the years 1860 to 1870, Sir Alexander Cunningham, the first Surveyor General, explored Kurukshetra and identified 4 cardinal points, setting out the boundaries of Kurukshetra, where 4 yakshas were enshrined in the past, which were the guardian deities to protect the Holy Land. The lack of inscriptions from this period can be explained by the fact that writing in India is believed to have only come into use after the arrival of Alexander in 325 BC. Rajesh Purohit again.
The Ashokan inscription is not talking about the Hindu tradition, the Hindu way of life, or the epic Mahabharata. It doesn't discuss anything about that. Ashoka's time is considered to be the time of a radical reformation from Hinduism to Buddhism.
Further supporting evidence comes from the discovery of coins dating from 172 BC. These were issued by the Indo-Greek ruler Ogothocles in present-day Afghanistan, which show Krishna on one side and Balarama on the other. In the 1850s, this column was discovered. It was erected by the Greek ruler Heliodorus in honor of Krishna. This has been dated to being from 113 BC. Further evidence is found in the later inscription of Pulakeshini II from Badami, and this calculates the date of the Mahabharata as 3131 BC. It is, however, the oral and living traditions in India which have preserved the Mahabharata for posterity in the original Sanskrit. This oral tradition of India is echoed by these ladies from Sakori, who are chanting the 1,000 names of Vishnu from the book of the Mahabharata in the original Sanskrit. Rajesh Purohit had this to say.
But in India, nobody knows how and why they adopted this kind of historical tradition. But I can say this much, because of this historical tradition of Shruti and Smriti, India could preserve a history which is living in nature and there where you do not require any kind of evidence more than the living evidences that you have.
Another example of this living tradition can be found here on the site of the Battle of Kurukshetra, where people come to chant the names of Krishna and remember his heroic deeds that were recorded in the Mahabharata.
बदलने के लिए उनका सबका राक्षसों का नाश करने के लिए उनको यहाँ आना पड़ता है.
Legend even holds that this banyan tree was witness to the knowledge imparted by Krishna on the battlefield. Hundreds of miles away, the living tradition of India is reflected by these Hindus, who remember the Ganges River every sunset as a giver of life and a destroyer of sins, and worship it at Varanasi as part of their daily prayers, as they have done for thousands of years. In the blazing heat of the Indian summer, the